The Book of Enoch, chapter 18, shows 7 stars burning like great mountains, chained together in a pit of fire for one crime. And then, the text refuses to tell you who holds the key to let them out. If suppressed history and the texts they removed from Scripture are what you came for, subscribe right now and hit the bell. This channel goes straight to the manuscripts, and the fragment numbers mainstream scholarship never connects. Now, let's go deeper. Here is the scene. Enoch is led by the angel to a place at the edge of everything, and he sees them. 7 stars, each burning like a great mountain, bound together in fire. This is not a metaphor for something else. The text is describing a prison, a pit. So Enoch asks the obvious question, the one you would ask, for what sin are these bound here? And the text answers you, almost. It gives you the crime. It describes the prison. It hands you the sentence, down to the number of years. But the one thing you actually want to know, who holds the key? Who can open it? The text goes silent. It withholds it on purpose. Hold on to that. We come back to it. Now, before we read a single line, understand what this document is, because your instinct is to call it a curiosity. It is not. The Book of Enoch was thrown out. Early church authorities condemned it as heresy and cut it from the canon. It should have vanished. It didn't. One church kept it alive. The church at Aksum in Ethiopia preserved it in Ge'ez, their ancient sacred language, copied by hand onto vellum for centuries after the rest of the world had buried it. Then came the confirmation nobody expected. In the caves at Qumran, among the Dead Sea Scrolls, scholars found fragments of Enoch in the original Aramaic, catalogued in the 4Q Enoch series, edited by the scholar J.T. Millick. And here's the part that stops people. There were more surviving copies of Enoch in those caves than of some books that stayed in the Bible. And the way it came back to Europe reads like an adventure. In 1773, a Scottish traveler named James Bruce walked out of Abyssinia carrying 3 copies of the complete text. 3. This is a document with a longer manuscript trail than most things anyone dares to call Scripture. So now we read it. Chapter 18, verses 12 through 16. The 7 stars transgressed the commandment of God. They did not come forth at their appointed time. They broke the calendar they were commanded to keep. And for that, the text says, they are bound until the consummation of their sin, 10,000 years. Read that number again, 10,000 years. That is not a symbol. That is a sentence. And then the text turns. Chapter 19. The angel Uriel speaks, and he names this same fire as the place where the angels who took wives will stand, their spirits leading men astray. So look at what you have. 1 pit, 1 fire, 2 kinds of prisoner. The 7 stars that broke their appointed times, and the angels who took wives, and the older records, outside the Bible, describe those exact bound powers waiting beneath the earth. Starting with a text found in the very same caves at Qumran. That text is called the Book of Giants. It came out of the same Qumran caves, in Aramaic fragments, torn and burned at the edges, catalogued in the same scroll collection as the fragments of Enoch himself. And it tells the same story from the inside. The giants, the offspring of the Watchers, dream of their own coming judgment. They see it approaching, and the bound powers behind them wait, sealed away, unable to escape the sentence set for them. This is not a stray echo. It sits inside the Enochic tradition itself. The same prison, the same waiting, the same fire under the earth. Now step back further than the scrolls, further than Enoch, into clay. In the Sumerian and Akkadian record, in the flood epic called Atrahasis, you find the Anunnaki, powers assigned a role, given an order to keep, and confined when that order broke down. Different tongue, different gods, same shape, a cosmic hierarchy, a duty, and a punishment when the duty is abandoned. Read the wedge marks in that tablet against Enoch chapter 18, and you are looking at the same skeleton wearing different skin. And here is where the language turns. The crime in Enoch chapter 18 is that the 7 stars did not come forth at their appointed time. In the Gehazi text, the phrasing for that crime is not rooted in moral sin first. It is rooted in the idea of transgressing a fixed measure, an appointed astronomical station, a place in the sky, a moment on the calendar that the stars were commanded to keep and did not keep. Hold on to that word. It does not mean they sinned. It means they left their post. Read against the calendar imagery running through the whole passage. This implies something specific. The stars were keepers of time, watchmen on a schedule, and they walked off the schedule. Before we move on, stop for a second. What you just heard is the part that changes everything, but it only makes sense written out next to the original notation. The passages, the chapter cross-references, the translated text, I put all of it into a written document. It's linked below, and the QR code is on your screen. Take 5 seconds, grab it, and come back, because what comes next builds directly on it. Because now you can measure the mainstream reading against the text and watch it strain. The standard scholarly answer is that the 7 stars are pure astronomical symbolism. The Pleiades, maybe, or the wandering planets, the ones that drift against the fixed field of stars, dressed up here as fallen angels. Bodies in the sky, given a story. That reading is clean, it is tidy, and on its own terms, it works. Until you go back to what the text actually gives you. It gives a fixed sentence, 10,000 years, count it out. It gives a named jailer, Uriel, standing over the pit. And it gives a key it refuses to name, a release held back on purpose. Ask yourself one thing. Symbols do not need parole. So why does this one have a sentence? A cluster of stars does not serve time. The Pleiades are not confined until the consummation of their sin. You do not appoint a guard over a metaphor. Because if the 7 stars are only symbols, then chapter 21 should not exist. And yet, Enoch is taken further, deeper, to a place void and terrible, and shown the strongest passage in the entire book. The one about the stars rolling in the fire. The one with the word forever. A place void and terrible. That is where Uriel takes Enoch next, in chapter 21. Past the 7 bound stars, past the pit of fire, down into the deepest cell in the entire book. And here, the language changes. It stops sounding like a sentence with an end. It becomes a single unbearable word. Slow down here. This is the passage they did not want copied. Enoch is led to a place void and terrible. No sky, no order, no measure of time at all. And he sees them again. The 7 stars, rolling in the fire like great mountains, burning and tumbling in a void that has no floor. He asks what this place is, and Uriel answers him plainly. This is the prison of the angels. Here they will be confined forever. Read that word again, forever. Because 3 chapters earlier, the text gave a number, 10,000 years, a hard sentence with a bottom to it, an end you could count toward. And now, in chapter 21, standing at the void, that number is gone. The clock is gone. 10,000 years becomes forever. The text does not explain the shift, it just closes the door. So here is where the whole passage has been pointing this entire time. The withheld key. Enoch is shown the crime. He is shown the prison. He is given the sentence, and then the sentence hardens into forever. But at no point does the text tell you who can open the door. That silence is not sloppy writing. It is the loudest thing in the book. And this is my reading, so hear it as that. The text records the prison. What follows is what I argue it means. The structure suggests the key is withheld on purpose. The release was never ours to schedule. Think about what these stars actually broke. They broke their appointed times. They abandoned the calendar they were commanded to keep, the fixed measure of order in the heavens. So the one who holds the key is the one who set that measure in the first place. The one who fixed the calendar the stars broke holds the only key that fits their prison. The text does not make this connection. The structure does. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. And look at the shape it makes across everything we walked through. In Enoch, bound powers waiting in a pit of fire. In the Book of Giants from Qumran, the same bound powers awaiting a judgment that has not come. In Atrahasis and the older Akkadian record, powers assigned an order and confined the moment that order broke. Different languages, different centuries, the same three pieces every single time. A fixed measure, a binding for breaking it, a waiting judgment held back by someone who has not spoken yet. And then think about what almost happened to this text. Condemned as heresy, cut out of the canon, erased on purpose by people who wanted it gone. And it survived anyway, copied by hand in Ge'ez by the church at Aksum, buried in the caves at Qumran and pulled out of the dust 2,000 years later, carried out of Abyssinia by James Bruce in 1773, 3 copies by the very kind of hands that were told to let it die. The book that names a prison nobody can open refused to be closed itself. Tell me in the comments which source carries the most weight for you, the Ge'ez, the Qumran fragments, or the Sumerian record. If the texts they buried are what you came for, subscribe and follow the next descent, because there is another door in these pages, older than this one, and next time we go down to it.